It was supposed to be a simple shopping trip, the kind that fathers and kids make every weekend. A hardworking black father walked into the busy Megamart with his little daughter, just looking to grab groceries and maybe a small treat for her. But what started as an ordinary afternoon quickly turned into something no one in the store could have imagined. The moment they stepped up to the checkout counter, the store manager appeared. His tone was sharp, his words cutting, and all eyes suddenly turned their way. Instead of offering help, the manager spoke with judgment, making the father feel small in front of his child and the entire line of strangers. The room grew tense as whispers spread through the aisles, and some shoppers exchanged uncomfortable looks. But what this manager didn't know was that he had just picked the wrong man to humiliate. Behind the father's calm expression was a story, one that would soon unfold and silence everyone watching. The truth about who he really was, and what he carried with him, was far greater than the insults being thrown at him. In just a few moments, the same people who stayed quiet would find themselves gasping in disbelief. As the balance of power inside that Megamart shifted in the most unexpected way, the father stayed quiet at first, his daughter clutching his hand tighter as the tension in the air grew heavier. People in the line could feel something was off, but no one dared to step in. The manager's voice grew louder, dripping with arrogance as he questioned why the man was even shopping there. His words carried an undertone that made it clear this wasn't just about groceries, it was about something deeper, something rooted in prejudice. The little girl's eyes darted between her dad and the manager, confused why her father was being treated differently, when all they had done was fill a cart like everyone else. But the father's calm didn't break. Those who watched closely noticed the way he stood steady, composed, almost as if he had dealt with this kind of situation before. What no one in that store realized yet was that his silence wasn't weakness. It was patience. He was giving the manager all the rope he needed, letting him expose himself in front of a growing crowd of shoppers, who now pretended to browse but couldn't look away. Behind that quiet strength was a man with a life far bigger than anyone could guess. He carried with him a history, connections, and a truth that would soon leave every single person in that Megamart questioning what they had just witnessed. The manager stepped closer, his voice carrying across the store, as he accused the father of holding up the line and making a scene. In reality, it was his own anger drawing the crowd, but he didn't seem to notice. A few shoppers exchanged uneasy glances, unsure if they should speak up or stay quiet. Some whispered to one another, their eyes locked on the little girl who now hid slightly behind her father's leg, sensing the weight of every word. At the same time, an elderly woman near the produce section watched intently. She had seen this father before, always polite, always patient, often shopping with his daughter. She clenched her hands around her basket, torn between stepping forward and staying in her place. Nearby, a young cashier tried to keep scanning items at another register, but her hands shook as she glanced back again and again. The tension in the air wasn't just about the man being humiliated, it was about the silence of everyone else, the quiet decision of whether to let it continue or finally say something. Still, the father remained composed. Every word the manager spat out seemed to hang heavier, and yet the man's expression never wavered. What no one could see was the storm brewing behind his calm eyes, and the reality that the truth he carried was about to shake that Megamart far more than anyone expected. The crowd around the checkout grew larger, shoppers pretending to scroll on their phones but keeping their eyes fixed on the standoff. The manager's face turned red as he raised his voice, demanding the father explain himself. Each word echoed across the aisles, and the little girl's grip tightened on her father's arm, her small voice whispering if they should just leave. But he didn't move. His silence only fueled the manager's anger, as though every calm breath the father took was a challenge he couldn't stand by now. Employees had gathered at the edges, whispering nervously to one another. A security guard slowly approached, uncertain whether to intervene or to stand by. The tension was so thick that even the faint beeping of other checkout scanners felt sharp in the air. Customers exchanged looks, sensing that something far bigger was happening than a simple argument. At the register, the elderly woman near the produce finally set her basket down, stepping closer as if ready to speak. The young cashier who had been shaking now looked at the father with wide eyes, recognizing something about him that made her hesitate before calling a supervisor. And just as the manager prepared to deliver his harshest words yet, the father finally shifted his stance, raising his head. The silence that followed was electric, the entire Megamart waiting for what was about to come next. The manager smirked as if he had already won, mistaking the father's quiet stance for surrender. But before a single word left the father's lips, the automatic doors at the front of the Megamart slid open. A group of people walked in, dressed in business attire, their presence commanding immediate attention. The chatter in the store quieted, and even the security guard straightened as he noticed them. They weren't ordinary shoppers. It was clear from the Coinway employees glanced at one another that these people carried weight. Among them was a woman who seemed to recognize the father. Instantly, her eyes widened, and she froze mid-step before whispering something to the others with her. Within seconds, their expressions shifted from casual to alert, and all of them turned toward the scene at the checkout. The manager, still too caught up in his own arrogance, didn't notice the shift in the room. He kept pushing, raising his voice louder, thinking he was in control. The daughter looked up at her dad, sensing a change but not fully understanding it. The father finally moved, his gaze locking on the group at the entrance. The air inside the Megamart grew tighter, suspense curling in every corner as shoppers realized this confrontation was no longer just between a manager and a customer. Something much bigger was unfolding, and no one was ready for what came next. The moment stretched as every eye in the Megamart turned toward the checkout. The woman in the business suit stepped forward, her voice steady but firm, as she called out the father's name. The manager froze, confusion flashing across his face. The group behind her quickly closed the distance, and in that instant the truth unraveled. The father was no ordinary shopper. He was a senior executive from the very corporation that owned the Megamart chain. His quiet strength, his calm composure, had been deliberate. He had allowed the manager to reveal his true character in front of a full store of witnesses. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Employees exchanged shocked looks, realizing the man their manager had been humiliating was, in fact, one of the most important figures tied to their company's future. The young cashier covered her mouth, and the elderly woman finally smiled with relief, as though justice had been served without a word needing to be raised. But just as the tension seemed to break, the father turned not to the manager, but to the gathered employees and shoppers. His voice, calm yet commanding, reminded everyone that silence in the face of wrong can be just as harmful as the act itself. The unexpected twist wasn't just who he was, it was the lesson he left behind. The real story wasn't about a powerful man being insulted, but about a community's choice to either stand by or stand up. The store fell silent as the father's words lingered in the air. The manager, who had moments ago stood tall with arrogance, now shrank under the weight of what had just been revealed. Shoppers who had kept their distance now looked down, realizing how easily they had let someone be treated unfairly without speaking up. The young cashier, still shaken, found the courage to step forward and apologize directly to the father, her voice trembling but sincere. The elderly woman gave a small nod of approval, proud that someone had finally broken the silence. The group of executives quickly escorted the manager aside, their hushed voices making it clear that his position at the Megamart was coming to an end. Employees whispered among themselves, already sensing the change this moment would bring to their workplace. For the father's daughters, the lesson was simple yet powerful. Her dad had shown her that true strength isn't in shouting back, but in standing tall with dignity and letting the truth speak for itself. As they left the store, heads turned not out of pity but out of respect. The father had entered as just another shopper, but he left as a reminder that integrity and patience can expose injustice better than anger ever could. The story closed not with punishment alone, but with a call for courage, because the next time someone is humiliated in silence, the real test will be who dares to stand up.